Hall's BBC School News reporter. We're here to interview Murray Burnell, a BBC sports journalist. Hi Murray, can I ask you some questions?
Hi, yes.
What inspired you to become a sports journalist?
I've always wanted to be a sports journalist since I was at school. From a very young age, I always listened to the radio. I loved radio and how it worked, and I was a big sports fan as well. So I put the two together, being a sports fan and loving the radio, and always wanted to be a sports journalist, sports commentator after that one.
Who was your childhood idol?
My boss actually was a big reason as to why I got into the career. I always listened to him. He's a fantastic commentator, and I always just wanted to be like him. He's so good at what he does, and I try and copy his style. It's important to have someone to look up to, and he was certainly that person.
What is your favourite sport and why?
I have a few. Like most of the nation, I love football, and football is really what got me into the career in the first place. I love cycling as well. The Tour de France coming to Yorkshire, I'm really excited about that this summer. Cycling is incredible to watch, especially if you're there. Rugby league I've learnt to love because of being at a Yorkshire radio station. You have to like rugby league. So yeah, those three are the big three for me.
What do you do in your spare time?
Lots. I like to socialise a lot. I like to cook. I like to cycle. I like to travel. I like to go and learn and do new things all the time. Yeah.
How do you prepare for your interviews?
To prepare for my interviews, I make sure I do thorough research. I make sure I completely understand what I'm talking about before I go into the interview. Otherwise, I think if you don't know what your subject is, then you're already at a loss. So if you're interviewing somebody who you're not really that sure of who they are or what they do, all of a sudden you're fighting against yourself really to try and come up with some good questions. So to prepare for an interview, I make sure I know everything about that person, their age, their favourite colour, whatever it is, I know everything about them. And that's important, I think, just to connect with your interview.
How do you get your news sources?
News sources are really easy to get nowadays because of the internet. Obviously Twitter is a big sort of source for news these days. You've got to be careful though, because there's a lot of unreliable stuff out there, a lot of inaccurate stuff out there. So you've got to make sure that you find the reliable sources. It's not just about finding anything, it's about finding the right thing. The internet's great for that, and just knowing people as well, being able to call someone up and say, ask them what's happening. That's important because you hear it from the horse's mouth, as it were. So that's really important, to get a reliable, accurate news source.
What has been your favourite interview and why?
I've got a few favourite interviews. My favourite interviews are usually those that create emotion. So where you see people laughing or crying or whatever, where people are pouring out with emotion. Last year at Rotherham United, they won promotion to a league above, and the fans were on the pitch after the game. I was interviewing those, and they were all very happy. I interviewed the manager afterwards, and he cried a little bit as well because they'd just been promoted, and it was his ambition. And that day was emotionally draining, but very emotionally satisfying as well. It was that was my best day of interviewing, I think.
Where has been the most exciting place you have broadcasted or interviewed?
A few of the big stadiums in England. Old Trafford, where Manchester United play, St James's Park, where Newcastle United play. They're the big two, because there's 50,000 plus people there. So to have that many people there and you're in the middle of it all, it's quite exciting. You really get an adrenaline rush from it.
Who is the most famous person have you ever interviewed?
It's only football people really. I haven't interviewed anyone like David Beckham yet. So no one that famous, but managers in the Premier League like Alan Pardew, Paul Lambert, Chris Hughton, Premier League managers who, Harry Redknapp as well. So those who a lot of people within football know, but still to interview a real celebrity. Still waiting.
Would you like to be famous yourself?
Probably not. I prefer being just a voice on the radio. It's quite nice to have that anonymity.
How do you get over your nerves before going on air?
I make sure I'm calm. I make sure I don't think too much about what's about to happen. I think as long as you enjoy what you do, it's easy to stay calm that way and not get too nervous. You need to heavy breathe. I think that's important. You know, it's almost like a performer before they go on stage at a theatre. Just be calm, be cool, and be confident in yourself as well. That helps.
How do you cope when things go wrong?
Live radio means that things do go wrong a lot of the time. You know, people can accidentally swear on air, which is always the worst thing that can happen. But you've always got to remember it's in the past. So live radio is always changing. You can always do something about the future. You can't do anything about what's just happened. So if something bad does happen, you have to just move on and stay cool. You can't overreact to it. And that's what I've had to do a number of times. Everyone has those moments, so you've got to cope.
What training did you do before getting your job?
I went to university. I did sports journalism at Leeds University, which is the big reason I got into the career in the first place. I did media studies at school in sixth form as well, and it was those two things that really made me enjoy the media. The media is massive now, so that was the training I got involved in. And there's more and more training out there these days as well for people who want to learn workshops, different things, whether it's sports journalism, fashion journalism, celebrity, health, you know, whatever it is, there's journalism all over the place, so the training is huge.
How do you feel when you're interviewing an awkward person?
It's difficult, and it challenges you. That's the biggest challenge, I think, as a journalist, when you have the most awkward interviews, when they give yes/no answers, or they just really don't want to be there. Footballers rarely want to be interviewed because they just want to finish the match and go home, and you have to stop them and say, can I speak to you for 5 minutes, and they don't really want to do it. But you've just got to accept that they're the way they are and just try and bring as much conversation out of them as possible.
Who would be your dream interview and why?
There's a few. I think a year ago, before Oprah Winfrey interviewed Lance Armstrong, definitely would have been Lance Armstrong because of all the controversy he's had in his career. He took drugs, performance-enhancing drugs, before a number of Tour de France events, which was very controversial, and he finally admitted it last year, which would have been great to be that interviewer to do that. I've always wanted to interview Thierry Henry, the former Arsenal player, who is a very interesting man. For a footballer, he manages to really open up and create interest. He's a very interesting man, so I'd like to interview him as well.
Can you give us any tips how to interview on this career?
Well, you've all done very well. I think make sure you know what you're talking about. Make sure you know exactly who you're talking to. You need to connect with your interviewee, because if you don't, again, you're at a loss with yourself. I think the tips in terms of getting into the career, you need to be confident, you need to talk to people, you need to make sure you're not too shy, because being in the media you have to be loud, you have to be quite talkative, and you've got to have a passion for listening to it as well. If you want to be on the radio, you've got to listen to the radio. If you want to be on TV, you've got to know what's coming out of the TV in the first place. So make sure you listen to the radio, read magazines, read the newspaper, watch TV, whatever it is, consume all the media you can, and then you'll get a good idea of what to do when you're in there.
Thank you for letting us interview you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
This is Tupton Hall School News Reporters. We hope you enjoyed our interview. Bye.